Welcome to WiserReads, the channel where we uncover the wisdom of history's greatest thinkers and transform their ideas into lessons you can apply today. In this video, we're diving into one of the most influential and controversial works in political philosophy, The Prince, by Niccolò Machiavelli. Written in the early 16th century, The Prince was not just another book. It was a bold manual for rulers navigating the ruthless realities of power, politics, and survival. At a time when Italy was torn apart by foreign invasions, betrayal, and constant political upheaval, Machiavelli set out to answer one burning question: what makes a ruler truly effective? Unlike the idealistic philosophers before him, Machiavelli focused on reality, not dreams. He stripped away illusions and told leaders what they needed to hear, not what they wanted to hear. He argued that it is often better to be feared than loved, that appearances can be more important than truth, and that moral considerations must sometimes bend to necessity. For Machiavelli, politics was not about virtue, it was about results. But The Prince is more than a cynical handbook. It's a sharp analysis of human nature and a guide to power that still resonates today. Whether in leadership, business, or personal influence, its lessons remain strikingly relevant. In this summary, we'll break down the key ideas chapter by chapter, explore Machiavelli's insights into strategy, leadership, and human behavior, and uncover why this book continues to spark debate 5 centuries later. By the end, you'll understand why The Prince has earned its place as one of the most studied and misunderstood books in history. So let's step into the world of Renaissance politics and discover what it truly means to rule.
Different types of principalities and how they are acquired. In the opening chapter of The Prince, Machiavelli examines the different types of principalities and how rulers come to power. He distinguishes between hereditary principalities, which are passed down through family lineage, and new principalities, which are acquired through fortune, skill, or conquest. Hereditary rulers often face fewer challenges because their subjects are accustomed to their family's rule, while new princes must work harder to establish authority and maintain control. Machiavelli explains that new principalities can be won in several ways: by one's own ability, through the support of others' armies, or by fortune. Each path has its own risks. Princes who rely on skill and personal merit are more likely to maintain long-term power, while those who depend solely on luck or external support are vulnerable to rebellion. He also highlights the importance of understanding the laws, customs, and traditions of the territories being ruled. A new ruler must balance strength, prudence, and strategy to secure loyalty and prevent unrest. By carefully analyzing the nature of the principality and acting decisively, a ruler can transform uncertainty into stability and ensure that their power endures. Hereditary principalities. In Hereditary Principalities, Machiavelli explores the challenges and advantages of ruling a state that has been governed by the same family for generations. He argues that hereditary rulers generally face fewer difficulties in maintaining power because their authority is traditional and widely accepted by their subjects. People are accustomed to the ruling family, and loyalty tends to be stronger, which reduces the likelihood of rebellion. However, Machiavelli warns that even hereditary princes must remain vigilant. Complacency or neglect can lead to discontent, especially if the prince mismanages the state or imposes new burdens on the population. Maintaining stability requires careful governance, adherence to established laws and customs, and the ability to respond effectively to unforeseen challenges. Machiavelli emphasizes that rulers of hereditary principalities should prioritize continuity over radical change. By respecting tradition and exercising prudence, they can strengthen their legitimacy and secure the loyalty of their subjects. In essence, while hereditary principalities provide a natural advantage in governance, success depends on a prince's wisdom, foresight, and careful management of both political and social dynamics to preserve power for generations.
Mixed principalities. In Mixed Principalities, Machiavelli examines states that are newly acquired and added to an existing territory. These principalities are particularly challenging to govern because they combine old and new populations with different customs, laws, and loyalties. The primary difficulty lies in winning the trust and obedience of the newly acquired subjects, who may resist foreign rule or feel loyal to their previous leaders. Machiavelli explains that a new ruler must act decisively to prevent unrest. This can include removing former rulers' families, respecting local traditions where possible, and establishing a strong presence to demonstrate authority. He also highlights the importance of settling colonies, either by placing loyal citizens in the region or using other methods to secure control, as this minimizes the risk of rebellion. Additionally, Machiavelli stresses that the more the new ruler relies on the goodwill of the conquered people, the more vulnerable the principality becomes. Strength, prudence, and preparation are crucial to maintaining power. By combining firm control with strategic concessions, a ruler can stabilize a mixed principality, integrate the new territory, and prevent uprisings, ensuring long-term security and loyalty. Why the kingdom of Darius, conquered by Alexander, did not rebel against his successors. In this chapter, Machiavelli analyzes why some conquered states are easier to maintain than others, using the example of the Persian Empire under Darius, which Alexander the Great conquered. Unlike newly acquired territories in Italy, the Persian kingdom did not rebel after Alexander's death. Machiavelli attributes this stability to the empire's centralized structure and the way it was governed. Darius ruled through a system of satraps and intermediaries rather than direct personal control over every city. This meant that when Alexander took over, the local populations were already accustomed to centralized authority, and there was no strong tradition of local autonomy. The empire's size and the delegation of power also prevented the emergence of factions capable of organizing rebellion. Machiavelli contrasts this with principalities that have recently been conquered and integrated into a new state, where local populations resist foreign rule. He concludes that rulers who inherit or take over large, well-organized kingdoms are less likely to face uprisings if the administrative system remains intact and the ruler respects existing structures. Strong institutions and careful governance, therefore, are key to maintaining stability in conquered territories.
How to govern cities or principalities that, before being conquered, lived by their own laws. In this chapter, Machiavelli addresses the challenges of ruling cities or principalities that previously governed themselves with their own laws and customs. Such territories are inherently difficult to control because the population is accustomed to autonomy and may resist foreign authority. Machiavelli emphasizes that the key to stability lies in either complete destruction of the former political structures or careful integration into the new ruler's system. He identifies three approaches: allow the city to keep its own laws while establishing a strong garrison, govern it personally, or install a puppet government loyal to the conqueror. Machiavelli notes that leaving institutions intact while imposing a garrison can work, but may breed resentment over time. Personally governing the city requires skill and constant attention, while establishing local allies can create a buffer against rebellion. Ultimately, Machiavelli argues that it is safer to destroy a rebellious city than to attempt half measures, as lingering autonomy fosters unrest. Success depends on the ruler's ability to combine practical authority with strategic foresight, ensuring loyalty and preventing the resurgence of the city's former independence. The balance of power, force, And political wisdom is essential for maintaining control.
New principalities acquired by one's own arms and ability. In this chapter, Machiavelli explores principalities that are gained through a ruler's own skill, intelligence, and military strength rather than through fortune or the support of others. He argues that these rulers have the best chance of establishing stable, long-lasting power because they rely on their own abilities rather than external forces, which can be unreliable. Machiavelli emphasizes that a prince who builds his state with his own arms demonstrates courage, discipline, and leadership, earning the loyalty and respect of his subjects. Unlike rulers who depend on mercenaries or inherited armies, a self-made prince can maintain authority and protect the state from both internal unrest and external threats. The use of personal skill and foresight allows such a ruler to adapt to changing circumstances, suppress rebellion, and consolidate power effectively. However, Machiavelli warns that relying solely on one's own strength requires constant effort, vigilance, and strategic decision-making. Success is not guaranteed, but the rewards, control, security, and the ability to shape destiny are far greater than for those who depend on fortune or the armies of others. Ultimately, personal ability, combined with decisive action, is the foundation for enduring leadership.
New principalities acquired with the arms of others and by fortune. In this chapter, Machiavelli examines principalities gained through fortune, inheritance, or the support of others' armies, rather than the ruler's own skill and resources. He warns that such rulers face greater risks because their power depends on external forces, which can be unreliable and fleeting. A prince who relies on the arms of others lacks control over his state and is vulnerable to rebellion or betrayal. Machiavelli contrasts these rulers with self-made princes, noting that while fortune may grant temporary success, long-term stability requires personal ability, leadership, and military strength. He stresses that rulers who depend on luck or outside forces must act swiftly to consolidate power, secure loyalty, and neutralize threats, or they will quickly lose their principalities. To survive, such princes must be pragmatic, decisive, and willing to adapt to changing circumstances. While fortune may open opportunities, it cannot substitute for competence, strategy, and preparation. Machiavelli's key message is that relying solely on others' support is inherently unstable. Only by combining fortune with personal skill can a ruler establish lasting authority and maintain control over a newly acquired state.
Concerning those who become princes through wickedness. In this chapter, Machiavelli examines rulers who rise to power through cruelty, deceit, or immoral actions, rather than through skill, inheritance, or fortune. He observes that such princes often achieve rapid success, as wicked acts can eliminate rivals and instill fear, making it easier to seize control. However, Machiavelli warns that cruelty used poorly can provoke hatred, unrest, and eventual downfall. He emphasizes that the effectiveness of wickedness depends on timing and strategy. Cruel acts, if executed decisively and at the outset, can stabilize rule by deterring opposition. Conversely, cruelty that is prolonged, arbitrary, or unnecessary breeds resentment and rebellion. Machiavelli highlights examples of rulers who secured power through ruthlessness, yet failed to maintain it due to poor judgment or lack of foresight. Ultimately, Machiavelli argues that immorality is a tool, not an end. Princes who employ wickedness wisely, balancing fear with prudence, and acting in ways that consolidate authority, can achieve lasting power. The key lesson is that ruthless actions must be measured, calculated, and purposeful, used only when necessary to establish security and dominance. Otherwise, they undermine the very power they were meant to secure.
The civil principality. In the civil principality, Machiavelli discusses principalities where a ruler rises to power not through inheritance or conquest, but with the support of the people or the nobility. He distinguishes between princes who gain favor from the common people and those who rely on the aristocracy, noting that each path carries distinct challenges and advantages. A prince supported by the people is generally more secure, as the populace can protect him against conspiracies from the elite. Conversely, a ruler dependent on the nobility risks being overthrown if the aristocracy turns against him. Machiavelli emphasizes that understanding the balance of power between different social groups is essential for maintaining authority. He also advises that a civil prince must avoid extremes, satisfy key factions, and act decisively to neutralize threats early. Gaining popularity through prudent policies, fair taxation, and respect for laws helps secure loyalty, while neglecting these factors invites instability. Ultimately, Machiavelli's lesson is that civil principalities require political acumen, strategic alliances, and the ability to navigate competing interests. By maintaining support from the right groups and carefully managing public perception, a prince can secure a stable and enduring rule.
How the strength of all principalities should be measured. In this chapter, Machiavelli explains that the strength of a principality depends not on its wealth or size alone, but on its ability to defend itself and maintain internal order. He argues that a strong principality is one that can withstand external threats without relying heavily on foreign assistance. Conversely, weak states, even if wealthy, are vulnerable to invasion and rebellion. Machiavelli emphasizes the importance of a ruler maintaining military preparedness and cultivating disciplined troops loyal to the prince. He criticizes the reliance on mercenaries or auxiliaries, which often undermines a state's security because such forces lack commitment and can turn against their employer. A principality's strength also lies in the support of its people. Content and loyal citizens provide stability and reduce the risk of internal revolts. Additionally, Machiavelli highlights that rulers must understand the geography, resources, and political climate of their state to gauge its true strength. Fortifications, strategic cities, and strong leadership further enhance security. Ultimately, Machiavelli's lesson is that power and survival depend on a principality's ability to defend itself through its own means, a combination of military capability, popular support, and prudent governance. Strength is measured not by potential, but by actual capacity to withstand challenges.
Ecclesiastical principalities. In Ecclesiastical Principalities, Machiavelli examines states ruled by religious authorities, such as the Papal States. These principalities are unique because their power is deeply intertwined with faith, tradition, and spiritual authority, rather than purely political or military strength. As a result, they are often more stable and less prone to rebellion than secular states. Machiavelli notes that ecclesiastical rulers benefit from inherited legitimacy, which stems from religious institutions and divine sanction. The populace generally accepts their authority without question, making it easier to maintain order. Additionally, the moral and cultural influence of religion discourages opposition and fosters loyalty, even in the face of external threats. Despite these advantages, Machiavelli warns that ecclesiastical principalities must still be managed prudently. Leaders must respect traditions, maintain public trust, and address any internal conflicts effectively. Unlike secular princes, they rarely need to rely on force, yet they must ensure their spiritual authority remains unquestioned. Ultimately, Machiavelli emphasizes that the stability of ecclesiastical principalities lies in their unique combination of religious legitimacy, institutional strength, and public acceptance.
Their success demonstrates how faith and tradition can secure power more effectively than armies or conquest alone.
The different kinds of military forces and mercenaries. In this chapter, Machiavelli analyzes the types of military forces a prince can employ, emphasizing that the foundation of all political power is a strong and loyal army. He distinguishes between mercenaries, auxiliaries, and native troops, warning that reliance on hired or foreign soldiers is dangerous. Mercenaries, Machiavelli argues, are unreliable and self-interested. They fight for pay rather than loyalty, making them prone to desertion or betrayal. Auxiliaries, or troops provided by allies, are equally risky because their loyalty lies with another ruler, not the prince, and they may turn against him if circumstances change. By contrast, native troops, citizens or subjects trained and loyal to their own state, provide the most dependable defense. A principality's stability depends on its ability to rely on its own forces rather than external support. Machiavelli stresses that a ruler must personally command or carefully oversee these forces to ensure discipline and effectiveness. Ultimately, Machiavelli's lesson is clear. A strong, self-sufficient military is essential for maintaining power and protecting the state. Dependence on mercenaries or auxiliaries undermines security and leaves a ruler vulnerable to internal unrest or external conquest. True strength lies in the loyalty and skill of one's own troops.
Auxiliaries, mixed troops, and native troops. In this chapter, Machiavelli examines the reliability of different military forces and warns princes about the dangers of depending on troops that are not their own. He distinguishes between auxiliary troops, provided by allies, mixed troops, a combination of native and foreign soldiers, and native troops, citizens loyal to the prince. Auxiliary forces are highly dangerous because their loyalty lies with another ruler, not the prince. While they may help in the short term, they can easily turn against the state, leaving the prince vulnerable to rebellion or conquest. Mixed troops, though somewhat more secure, still carry risk because the foreign elements may undermine cohesion and discipline. Native troops, on the other hand, are the most reliable. Soldiers defending their own land have natural loyalty, personal stakes, and stronger motivation to maintain the state's stability. Machiavelli emphasizes that a wise ruler builds and maintains an army composed primarily of his own subjects, ensuring discipline, morale, and loyalty. Ultimately, Machiavelli's lesson is that a prince's security depends on self-reliant, well-trained forces. Reliance on auxiliaries or foreign soldiers may offer short-term advantages, but undermines long-term stability, leaving the ruler exposed to both internal and external threats.
The duties of a prince in relation to military matters. In this chapter, Machiavelli emphasizes that a prince's primary duty is to maintain a strong and capable military. He argues that political power depends on military strength, and a ruler who neglects military matters risks losing both authority and territory. Princes must personally understand warfare, strategy, and the organization of their forces to ensure the security of the state. Machiavelli stresses that relying on mercenaries or auxiliary troops is dangerous because their loyalty is uncertain. Instead, a prince should cultivate native troops, citizens and subjects who have a personal stake in defending their homeland. A disciplined, motivated army not only protects the state from external threats, but also deters internal revolts. Additionally, the prince must constantly prepare for war, even during times of peace. This includes training, strategic planning, and maintaining resources, fortifications, and alliances. Military preparedness, Machiavelli argues, is inseparable from political wisdom. A ruler who neglects it is vulnerable to both opportunistic neighbors and ambitious internal factions. Ultimately, Machiavelli's message is clear. A prince's security, longevity, and ability to rule effectively depend on mastery of military matters. Knowledge, vigilance, and direct involvement in military affairs are essential for maintaining power and stability.
Things for which men, and especially princes, are praised or blamed. In this chapter, Machiavelli explores the qualities for which princes are praised or criticized and how these traits affect their ability to maintain power. He emphasizes that rulers are often judged not solely by morality, but by practical outcomes, particularly the stability and security of their state. Actions that may seem immoral in private can be justified if they serve the public good or strengthen the prince's authority. Machiavelli highlights key traits that earn praise: courage, decisiveness, intelligence, and prudence. Conversely, vices such as cowardice, indecision, and negligence invite criticism and threaten a ruler's position. However, he cautions that excessive virtue can sometimes be detrimental. For example, being overly generous or merciful may weaken authority and encourage disorder. The prince must carefully balance reputation and effectiveness, cultivating traits that inspire respect while avoiding actions that provoke hatred or resentment. Public perception matters. A ruler who is feared but respected is often more secure than one who is loved but weak. Ultimately, Machiavelli teaches that princes must prioritize practical wisdom over conventional morality, acting strategically to maintain power, protect the state, and secure their legacy even if it requires unpopular decisions.
Generosity and parsimony. In this chapter, Machiavelli examines the balance between generosity and parsimony, explaining how a prince's financial decisions affect his reputation and the stability of his state. While generosity is often admired, excessive giving can be dangerous because it may drain the treasury and require heavy taxation to sustain, which ultimately makes the ruler unpopular. In contrast, parsimony, when practiced wisely, preserves resources, strengthens the state, and allows the prince to act decisively in times of need. Machiavelli argues that a prince should appear generous but exercise prudence and moderation. Strategic spending, especially on rewarding loyalty or securing critical alliances, can enhance a ruler's reputation without jeopardizing financial stability. Conversely, thoughtless extravagance undermines authority and leaves the prince vulnerable to public discontent. The key lesson is that a successful ruler balances appearances with practical management. Being perceived as generous can earn respect, but the foundation of power lies in prudent stewardship of resources. By combining careful financial management with strategic displays of generosity, a prince ensures both public admiration and long-term stability, demonstrating that wisdom often outweighs simple acts of largesse.
Cruelty and mercy, and whether it is better to be loved or feared. In this chapter, Machiavelli discusses the delicate balance between cruelty and mercy, and whether it is preferable for a prince to be loved or feared. He argues that while being loved is desirable, it is often insufficient to maintain power because human loyalty is unreliable. Fear, on the other hand, is a stronger and more consistent motivator, as people are less likely to challenge a ruler they fear. Machiavelli emphasizes that cruelty, when applied strategically and decisively, can stabilize authority. Early, measured acts of firmness or punishment eliminate threats and prevent disorder, earning long-term security. However, cruelty that is excessive, arbitrary, or prolonged breeds hatred, which can undermine the prince's power. The ideal approach, Machiavelli concludes, is to be feared but not hated. A wise ruler ensures that fear is accompanied by respect, avoiding actions that provoke resentment among the populace.
Mercy and generosity can be shown selectively, but they should never compromise the prince's authority or the stability of the state. Ultimately, Machiavelli teaches that effective leadership prioritizes pragmatic control over conventional morality, using fear and measured cruelty to secure loyalty, deter rebellion, and maintain enduring power.
How princes should keep their word. In this chapter, Machiavelli examines the tension between honesty and pragmatism in leadership. He argues that while keeping one's word is generally seen as virtuous, princes must prioritize the security and stability of their state over strict adherence to promises. Rigid honesty can be dangerous if it limits a ruler's ability to act decisively in changing circumstances. Machiavelli stresses that circumstances often require flexibility. A wise prince knows when to uphold commitments and when breaking a promise serves a greater political purpose. The key is perception. The prince should appear trustworthy even if he occasionally acts contrary to his word. By managing appearances, a ruler can maintain credibility while taking necessary actions to protect his power. He also notes that cunning, prudence, and strategic deception are valuable tools in governance. A prince who relies solely on virtue without considering practical realities risks losing authority and inviting rebellion. Ultimately, Machiavelli concludes that effective rulers balance reputation and pragmatism, keeping promises when convenient, but adapting when circumstances demand it. The survival and strength of the state take precedence over conventional morality, and a prince must act with intelligence, foresight, and occasional calculated deception to maintain power. How to avoid being despised and hated. In this chapter, Machiavelli explains that a prince's survival depends on avoiding hatred and contempt from his subjects. He argues that while it is impossible to be universally loved, a wise ruler can prevent widespread hatred by acting prudently, balancing fear and respect, and avoiding actions that directly harm the populace. Machiavelli emphasizes two key principles. First, a prince should not seize the property or women of his subjects, as these acts generate enduring resentment. Second, the ruler must enforce laws and punishments fairly, maintaining order without appearing arbitrary or malicious. By protecting the interests of the people while asserting authority, the prince secures loyalty and minimizes rebellion. He also advises managing relationships with the nobility carefully, as their power can pose a threat if they feel marginalized or dishonored. At the same time, a ruler should cultivate a strong military and decisive leadership to deter conspiracies. Ultimately, Machiavelli concludes that the best way to maintain power is to inspire respect and fear without provoking hatred. By acting justly, protecting citizens' key interests, and demonstrating competence, a prince can secure authority, maintain stability, and preserve his principality over time.
Whether fortresses and other things which princes often make are useful or not. In this chapter, Machiavelli examines the usefulness of fortresses, castles, and other defensive measures that princes often construct to protect their states. While these structures can provide security against external attacks, he warns that they are not a substitute for wise governance and the loyalty of the people. A fortress may defend against enemies, but it cannot prevent internal revolt or discontent if the prince's rule is unpopular. Machiavelli argues that a ruler's primary security lies in strong leadership, popular support, and military preparedness rather than physical fortifications alone. Citizens who trust and respect the prince are less likely to rebel, making fortresses secondary tools rather than essential safeguards. He also notes that overly relying on fortifications may signal weakness, encouraging enemies to exploit perceived vulnerability.
Ultimately, Machiavelli concludes that while fortresses and similar measures can be useful in specific situations, they should never replace prudent governance. A successful prince ensures stability by cultivating loyalty, maintaining a disciplined army, and demonstrating decisive leadership. Physical defenses complement but cannot replace the practical, political, and military wisdom required to maintain power and protect the state.
How a prince should conduct himself to acquire reputation. In this chapter, Machiavelli explains that a prince's power and security depend heavily on his reputation. A ruler must cultivate an image that inspires respect, admiration, and confidence among subjects and allies alike. Reputation serves as a shield against internal rebellion and external threats, as people are less likely to challenge a prince who is perceived as strong and capable. Machiavelli emphasizes that a prince should embody qualities such as courage, wisdom, decisiveness, and moderation. While appearing virtuous is important, the prince must prioritize effectiveness over strict morality. Public perception often outweighs personal ethics, and a ruler who is feared yet respected is more secure than one who is loved but seen as weak. He also notes that princes should demonstrate practical achievements, such as military victories, wise governance, and the protection of the state, to enhance their reputation. Avoiding actions that provoke hatred or contempt is crucial, as resentment can destabilize authority. Ultimately, Machiavelli teaches that reputation is not merely about vanity, it is a strategic tool. By carefully managing appearances, cultivating public respect, and demonstrating competence, a prince can solidify power, deter threats, and maintain long-term stability.
Concerning the prince's ministers. In this chapter, Machiavelli emphasizes that a prince's choice of ministers is crucial for effective governance. Ministers act as extensions of the ruler, influencing policy, administration, and public perception. If chosen poorly, they can undermine authority, mismanage resources, or even conspire against the prince. Conversely, competent and loyal ministers strengthen the state, implement decisions efficiently, and enhance the prince's reputation. Machiavelli advises that a wise ruler surrounds himself with capable, trustworthy, and intelligent advisors. Ministers should be selected based on merit rather than personal favoritism or flattery, as this ensures that decisions are guided by knowledge and competence rather than deception or self-interest. A prince should maintain oversight and control, ensuring that ministers act in alignment with the state's interests rather than their own agendas. He also highlights the importance of avoiding dependence on any single minister. Relying too heavily on one individual can create vulnerability, as betrayal or incompetence may jeopardize the prince's authority. Ultimately, Machiavelli teaches that ministers are an extension of the prince's power. By carefully choosing and supervising them, the ruler ensures effective governance, preserves stability, and strengthens his own authority, demonstrating that prudent delegation is essential for maintaining long-term control.
How flatterers should be avoided. In this chapter, Machiavelli warns princes about the dangers of flattery and the importance of surrounding themselves with honest counsel. Flatterers aim to please the ruler rather than provide truthful advice, leading to poor decisions and potential mismanagement of the state. A prince who relies on sycophants risks being misled and may act against his own interests, undermining authority and stability.
Machiavelli emphasizes that a wise ruler must seek out honest advisors who speak the truth, even if it is uncomfortable. Courageous and knowledgeable ministers offer guidance based on the realities of politics, military strategy, and governance, rather than personal gain. By listening carefully and critically, a prince can make informed decisions, avoid errors, and maintain control over his state. He also advises that princes cultivate discernment to recognize deceit, separating those who genuinely serve the state from those motivated by flattery or ambition. While it is impossible to eliminate all self-interest among advisors, careful selection and oversight minimize risk. Ultimately, Machiavelli teaches that a prince's strength lies not only in military power or reputation, but also in the quality of counsel he receives. Avoiding flatterers ensures wise governance, prevents manipulation, and reinforces the ruler's enduring authority.
Why the princes of Italy have lost their states. In this chapter, Machiavelli analyzes the reasons why many Italian princes have lost their territories, using historical examples to draw practical lessons for rulers. He identifies weak military power, reliance on fortune, and poor governance as the main causes of failure. Many princes depended on mercenaries or auxiliary troops rather than maintaining their own disciplined armies, leaving them vulnerable to both internal revolt and foreign invasion. Machiavelli also emphasizes the dangers of complacency, mismanagement, and moral weakness. Princes who failed to act decisively, maintain popular support, or address political threats often lost their states. Some relied too heavily on alliances or external powers, which proved unreliable when circumstances changed. Additionally, neglecting the loyalty and goodwill of the people created opportunities for uprisings and conspiracies. The chapter serves as a cautionary guide. Rulers must prioritize self-reliant military strength, prudent administration, and strategic foresight. Success depends on a combination of personal skill, political wisdom, and careful attention to both internal and external challenges. By learning from the failures of past Italian princes, Machiavelli argues that contemporary rulers can avoid similar mistakes, consolidate power, and secure their states against instability and loss.
How much fortune can do in human affairs, and how one can resist her. In this chapter, Machiavelli explores the role of fortune, luck or chance, in human affairs and its impact on political power. He acknowledges that fortune can provide opportunities, such as unexpected victories or favorable circumstances, but it is unpredictable and cannot be relied upon to maintain authority. Rulers who depend solely on luck risk losing their states when circumstances change. Machiavelli emphasizes that fortune favors the prepared and capable. A prince can resist misfortune through careful planning, adaptability, and decisive action. By cultivating personal skill, prudence, and a disciplined approach to governance, a ruler can seize opportunities when they arise and mitigate the effects of adverse events. Military preparedness, strong institutions, and popular support are crucial tools in countering the whims of fortune. He likens fortune to a river that floods unexpectedly. While it cannot be controlled, one can build levees and defenses to limit damage. Similarly, rulers cannot dictate every outcome, but can take proactive measures to protect their state and secure power. Ultimately, Machiavelli teaches that while fortune influences events, virtue, skill, courage, and strategy determines long-term success, enabling a prince to shape his destiny rather than be ruled by chance.
Exhortation to liberate Italy from the barbarians. In the final chapter of The Prince, Machiavelli issues a passionate call for a strong and capable leader to liberate Italy from foreign domination. At the time, Italy was fragmented and vulnerable to invasions by France, Spain, and other powers, leaving its people divided and powerless. Machiavelli urges a virtuous and courageous prince to rise, unite the Italian states, and restore national strength and independence. He argues that Italy's misfortunes are not inevitable. They result from weak leadership, internal divisions, and reliance on fortune rather than skill. By seizing the opportunity presented by favorable circumstances, a determined ruler can achieve glory, consolidate power, and secure the freedom of the nation. Machiavelli emphasizes that virtù, personal ability, decisiveness, and strategic wisdom is essential for overcoming the challenges posed by fortune and external threats. The exhortation combines political analysis with moral urgency, portraying the liberation of Italy as both a practical and noble endeavor. Machiavelli inspires leaders to act boldly, seize opportunities, and prioritize the security and prosperity of the state over personal gain. The chapter closes The Prince as a timeless manifesto on leadership, courage, and the responsibilities of power.
You've just explored the key lessons of Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince, a timeless guide on power, leadership, and human nature. From understanding the differences between hereditary and new principalities to navigating the challenges of conquest, governance, and military strategy, Machiavelli teaches that effective rulers combine skill, prudence, and decisiveness. He reminds us that fortune may open doors, but lasting success depends on virtù, the ability to act wisely, adapt to circumstances, and make tough choices when necessary. We've seen how a prince must balance fear and love, cruelty and mercy, generosity and parsimony, all while carefully managing advisors, troops, and public perception. Every lesson points to one central idea: pragmatism in leadership is key, and understanding human behavior is essential for maintaining authority and stability. Whether you're a student of history, a business leader, or simply curious about power dynamics, The Prince offers insights that remain relevant even today. If you enjoyed this summary and want more bite-sized wisdom from history's greatest thinkers, join our community here at WiserReads. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and dive into more ideas that can sharpen your mind, guide your decisions, and inspire your own path to influence and understanding.